hello everyone. Welcome to our today webinar, the Building Smart UAE webinar. I'm so excited to have you here as we dive today into a really very important topic that has been really generating a lot of buzz and noise on social media lately. The main topic will be having a practical views of the proposed change of the ISO 19650 2018 version toward having a new updated version after these almost 8 years. The topic is very vital for our construction industry, for us, especially who work on digital deliveries, BIM managers, BIM engineers, etc. The speakers, we have two speakers today, Mr. Marcin Klocek, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, and Dr. Ibrahim Fahda. I will not introduce them. They will introduce themselves shortly when they start their part. Before I hand over to our first speaker, I would like to encourage all of you to stay active during the webinar, to ask questions. We have a question and answers panel or on the chat, and to share your insight. So we make this a conversation, not only one side, like a presentation. After the first session, before moving to Dr. Ibrahim part, we will share also another link and QR code for more extended online survey, where you have the possibility or opportunity to give your feedback, or if you agree or you don't agree, or if you have any comment regarding the coming changes to the ISO. So it's up to you, Mr. Marcin. I will stop the sharing now. Please share from your side.
Okay.
The stage is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ali. Good morning, everyone. First of all, big thanks to Dr. Ali for organizing this webinar, and to Dr. Ibrahim for being a speaker. The presentation as you can see, has a title: Practical View of the Proposed Changes to ISO 19650. On the right-hand side, you can see my short survey. It's a very simple one-question survey. The question you can see here: what are BIM deliverables? Please scan the code, the QR code, or click the link which I sent in chat a few times already, and you will be able to answer this question. A big ask for everyone to answer this question, because I would like to get some conclusions from the responses. It's a multiple choice question. If you choose the last question, there will be a field where you can give a short one-line explanation of why you chose this question, and that's this last choice is something else. Now, about ISO 19650, I assume that the audience generally knows what ISO 19650 is. We have been on a journey from 2018 until now, when the first 2018 edition of 19650 has been implemented throughout the industry. This presentation is about key proposed changes and the commentary. Now, here we have a short information about the current situation. It's what we are commenting on, what we will be discussing, is called Draft International Standard, DIS. It was published on 10th of March this year, and public consultations run until 3rd May. So you all have still a chance, if somebody has not done it yet, to give their comments on the ISO website, which is specifically devoted to gathering those comments. Now, what is a practical view? One word of explanation. It's a view, it's my view, based on the interpretation and implementation of ISO 19650 in actual project practice, roughly since the introduction of the standard in 2018. This view is subjective. So some of you may have a different experience, and it's absolutely great, and we would love to discuss it during the Q&A part of this presentation. One word about myself. I'm an architect, digital and parametric designer with 25 years of practice, and digital delivery manager, trying with mixed results to implement our 19650 standard since 2019 in various organizations, clients, consultants, contractors. Again, please, for those who may be joining now, please scan the QR code or click the link in the chat to answer to this single question. Now, a little bit of a context where we are now. ISO 19650 has been in operation for the past 8 years. There's been a lot of feedback, a lot of experience gathered throughout this time within the industry. The webinar organized by the team creating this update proposal gathered there are more than 900 people. 3 parts are under revision, 1, 2, and 3, with 1 and 2 having already the text to be commented, submitted, but part 3 not yet. There is just an idea of what part 3 is going to be, and I will discuss it at one of the points. We are roughly at that point within the 12 weeks public consultations, which will end on 3rd May, as I mentioned. In 2026-7, we expect to have an agreement of what the final update will be, and it's expected to be published in 2027. The update of the official update of ISO 19650, I mean. Now, let's look at the key proposed changes that I have identified. We have 8 of them. A lot of it is about, at least on the surface, changing of the terminology, but behind this there are quite serious consequences. So it's proposed to finally almost get rid of the BIM, the famous BIM commercial acronym, in favor of information management. Number 2, new ISO series is proposed to combine former part 2 and 3. To remind you, part 2 was about the delivery phase of the project, and part 3 was about the operation. Now, the committee working on this proposal recognized that we should treat the entire life cycle of the asset as one, and they are combining part 2 and 3 into new part 2. BP, again, another famous acronym, standing for BIM Execution Plan, is proposed to be changed into Information Production Plan, again with the consequential use of the information term in all those terminology. EIR, again, Exchange Information Requirement is proposed to be renamed to Information Production Requirements, or IPR. MIDP renamed to Information Production Schedule. There is one new stage of the state of an information workflow proposed, which is called submitted. So from the current work in progress, shared, published, and archived, it is proposed to have work in progress, shared, submitted, published, and archived. A big organizational change which is proposed is clear separation of information production and management activity. Now, that's something that's been happening already in the industry. Now, the new proposal for ISO wants to formalize it and clearly separate those two types of activities, and also the project roles which will be responsible, which is project team members, which will be responsible for those two activities. And last but not least, part 3, which kind of, after the merging of former part 2 and 3, becomes kind of free or without any role, is going to be an implementation guidance for part 2. However, we don't have still a text for part 3, so the real importance, look, and the way to use this part 3 is still unclear. let's move through those changes one by one. Now here we have the BIM changing to information management. Here we have a list of a more detailed list of what changes from 2018 to 2026 proposed version. However, I will move to the to the commentary part. That's a good direction. BIM became a marketing slogan, which is very commonly overused, misunderstood, and confusing. So it was and still is a powerful marketing acronym, which when it is used, people generally know what it is, but very often they don't know what it is or what they mean in detail. So people mean different things under this term. Moving to information is more about what really was the initial intention, even of 2018 version of ISO 19650. But basically, it draws attention to the fact that digital delivery, as I prefer to call BIM, is much more than 3D representation of the asset, and it's about information related to this. So on project, BIM was glued to everything related to ISO 19650, 3D, and more. So we had, and we still have, BIM models, of course, BIM modelers, BIM documents, BIM teams, even something like BIM draftsmen and BIM drawings, BIM deliverables, last but not least, and that's actually a topic of the single question survey that I asked you to fill at the beginning. Is it expected by industry? In my opinion, yes. And part of the reason is this lack of clarity of what BIM really means, and the overusing of this term, and confusion resulting in the industry from what it means, because many people mean different things under this term. Job titles, if this change is approved, job titles will have to change, probably by replacing BIM with information delivery, or, and I think that's better, digital delivery. I will explain why a bit later. Actually, this bit later comes now. I still think that although the change is generally in the right direction, the term information management is a little bit foreign for the construction industry. It comes from the area of IT, and people may have problems with adopting this term. So what I think would be a better term, and actually I made one of the comments in this proposal on ISO website, is that we call it digital delivery. And digital delivery or information delivery would be an activity which combines information production and information management. Those two very distinct activities, which has been already proposed to be recognized in the new version of ISO 19650. So if we adopt this approach, then the information delivery is a kind of a container, is an overarching activity within which we can have information production activity and information management activity. But generally, it's a move in the right direction. Change number 2, the combining of former part 2 and part 3. Here's a reminder of our survey. So if somebody has not done it yet, please scan the QR code and answer the single question. So what's going to happen is from the current look and organization of ISO 19650, the one issued in 2018, we have three. We have more. We have actually 5, but 3 parts which are being revised now, are proposed to be revised. Part 1, concepts and principles. Part 2, delivery phase, and part 3, operational phase. Now, those 2 parts are going to be merged together and make a new part 1, which will be called information management process. and it's assumed that this information management process will work for the entire life cycle of the asset. So that part one, the title of which will not change, concept and principles, and part two, information management process, will form the first two parts of new ISO 19650-2026, with part three coming later, and I explain a bit more about it in subsequent slides. From the more detailed changes, one that is good to mention is that's the last one. The 8-step delivery process in ISO 19650 part 2 and 3 will become a 9-step process after merging part 2 and part 3. The rationale behind this change is recognizing that we need to manage information for the entire life cycle of the asset, and remove this barrier from the information management point of view, remove this barrier of project handover, which often resulted with losing a lot of information from the delivery phase. Now, I think that this change is risky, even if theoretically is the right move. It kind of to me, in my opinion, tries to do too much. It ignores the reality of delivery and operation being really very different project phases with different actors involved in both, and thus, because of this, there is a risk of loss of focus on the delivery phase, which is really the phase where ISO 19650 was used the most. So merging those two phases will not change the contractual structures and constraints that kept facility managers out of delivery conversations. I don't see that this kind of change was expected by industry. So the real problem was not really the standard, but the fact that facility managers and operators were rarely involved in the delivery phase of the building, which would benefit the projects a lot, but it has not been happening. It's still very often not happening. And this risk, which I already mentioned, loss of delivery focus, I think that this change tries to achieve a bit too much. And from my short research, the scope of operation projects or facility or the number of facility manager or management teams using actually the former or still now existing ISO 19650 part 3 was very, very minor. So now we're trying to satisfy a market or a pool of users which so far have not been very much interested in using ISO 19650, and it may come at a cost of those who were actually interested, all the actors of the project delivery phase. Change number 3, BP changes to information production plan. This change is a consequence of over the board moving to the use of information. One of the consequences is, or maybe it's not a consequence directly, but it's a fact that the new proposal does not state clearly any pre-appointment plan. As you remember, we had in current ISO 19650, we have pre-appointment BP, in short, pre-BP. Nothing like that is mentioned in the new proposal. In practice, very often teams did not have time in the bidding phase to create the pre-BP. So it may actually simplify the process. But the new term, the IPP, will basically serve the same purpose as BP. So this change is better, but not ideal. It's good that we are changing the name. I have some doubts about the name itself. Information production plan will be easier to understand as part of the project and design management activities rather than a manual for modeling in 3D. So I think that's a good part of this. What we have been observing a lot is that the BP was often developed in isolation from and consistent with project and design management plan. On projects, we have a number of plans. Two most important, or the most important one is project management plan. BP should be always developed in close relationship to this, to that plan, and be consistent. This often did not happen. Is it expected by the industry? In a way, yes, but only as a consequence of this general change of terminology from BIM to information management. Now, is this, I still think it's a correct decision because the new name makes it more clear that the document is essential for preparation of what we are really paid for, project information presented as project deliverables, not just for 3D models, because the 3D models that we build, yes, we do build them, but they are only sources, they are deliverables themselves, but first of all, sources for many other project deliverables, the most important of which are drawings. Having said that, I still think that the name can be improved, and instead of information production plan, I would prefer information delivery plan, following this concept that delivery equals production plus management. And it is the fact that BP, current BP, and whatever it be called in future, contains a lot of rules and regulations about how to produce information, but also how to manage information. That's why if it's called information production plan, it kind of suggests it's limited to production aspect only, but not the management, which I think is a little bit misleading. Change number 4. EIR, changes to information production requirements. I think it's a good change. Exchange information requirements always sounded to me as a bit awkward term, because exchange, I was never sure what it really was meant to be. Exchange is like narrows down a little bit the focus to what information should be passed to from which party to which party, whereas in practice it was, and it is, a list of requirements from the client what should be delivered. So actually essential document, rather than when and from whom to whom this information should be passed, as exchange would suggest. So I think it's a good thing that we probably will change this name, but also it has a big consequence of formally removing the associated documents of OIR, PIR, and AIR, organization, project, and asset information requirements. So the new proposal does not explicitly state that we need this document. They have been kind of converted into something called perspectives. You can, but still all this is incorporated in a single document of information production requirements. You can have requirements from various perspectives, like organization, project, asset. However, it's no more separated into distinct documents, which I think is a good thing, because in practice, again, those OIR, AIR, and PIR documents were rarely used and have not project teams have not seen tremendous value in preparing those documents, and they required a lot of work. So that's about this practical reality where EIR was generally adopted by the industry. However, the other documents not really. They were not seen of a huge value. I would say this was expected by the industry. Sometimes the acronym EIR was expanded as employer information requirements rather than exchange, which kind of is a little bit better. Contractual impact. The EIR was the mechanism through which appointing parties expressed legally binding information requirements. The new document will serve the same purpose, so there is from that point of view, it's just a change of name. Again, I think this name can be improved into information delivery requirements rather than production, and the logic behind it is the same as before, that delivery could be defined as production plus management. And definitely EIRs contain requirements from both aspects of what we do. Change number 5. MIDP becomes information production schedule. And the requirement for TIDPs is dropped, like explicit requirement for separate documents called TIDPs. It kind of recognizes the practice again, because on most projects, MIDP was the only document produced, if at all, if it was produced at all. And what's even more important is that for the clients and for our submissions, MIDP was the only document to be submitted. TIDP is about kind of internal procedure, which I think it's better if it's left to the teams rather than being standardized. What should matter is the final result, which is a master information delivery plan, no matter how those information within this was collated and put together. So I think it's a reasonable simplification. However, the responsibility of input to the new IPS from the respective discipline teams still remains, and we cannot get rid of it because the project manager or digital delivery manager cannot be responsible for the entire content of this of the IPS or the former MIDP. I would say that this change is expected by industry. I would expect that this based on practice, and the practice which I mentioned, that TIDPs were often not present as separate documents. In fact, the input from the teams into the MIDP, if it existed, was given in various informal ways, even editing the final MIDP rather than formalized into TIDPs. We have some background noise. Maybe somebody could mute the microphone. But there is a risk to this, and that's the tracking of responsibilities. It remains to be seen how the IPS, the information within IPS could still be tracked back to the originators. It's a technical question which can be solved with the enabling technology, whatever it is, be it an Excel, an intelligent Excel template, or some more sophisticated cloud platform. But it is important that the responsibility for the information, for the deliverables, list of the plan of deliverables from various task teams remains trackable. Again, this is by the same token. I think this name can be improved into information delivery schedule rather than information production schedule. Again, delivery being information plus management. Change number 6. I find this important one, although I haven't seen this mentioned a lot in the commentaries in social media and internet. There is a proposal to introduce new state of project of information flow, and it's called submitted. Now, I faced this problem like firsthand on my projects in Hong Kong, where I spent past 20 years before coming to Middle East, and we had to invent a additional state of information flow. We called it shared with the client. It's because the original sharing state of the ISO 19650 share state assumes that information can be shared to all the parties, including the client. However, in practice, we all know that sharing with client is slightly different, or a lot different, than sharing with the project teams, or the discipline teams or task teams. That's why we had to invent this shared with client, another state, which now is actually exactly the purpose of the submitted state. And this would be a state where information within the teams have been coordinated and approved for sharing to client, and shared to client, but not yet accepted. After accepted, the information would become published. So this kind of brings the original purpose of published, which is information ready for the intended purpose, to be finally implemented. On many projects, published was used and is still used as information ready to be submitted to the client, but not yet approved, which is contrary with the original intention of what published should be. So I think it's a necessary change, a good change. It meets the expectations, meets the needs of projects based on the practical reality. I expected this change to happen. There is an impact on our CDs. We will have to add one stage to information flows. This states usually result with how the project folder structure is organized. So I expect, if that's accepted, I expect one more folder to appear at the top level of the CD project folder structure, if that's the way organization implements the flow, the information flow states. Most often, that's how it happens, through folders in ACC. A good impact on project management is that the confusion in how the published state is understood currently will disappear, and published will be able to be used for its intended purpose of information approved by the client and ready for the intended purpose, which can be construction, can be statutory submission, or something else. Project workflows, some project workflows will have to be redesigned. Change number 7, separation of information production and management. That's and a positive change. This is basically about recognition that information production and management are distinct activities and require distinct skills and different people, different teams to take care of. It clarifies the governance and acknowledges separation of management and production. There is a new term introduced called information management team. So from practice, those responsibilities, information management responsibilities, often fell on either model authors or, as we call them, BIM managers or BIM coordinators. Information management is a very important activity, and sometimes people were simply overworked because they and also did not have the right skills to manage information because they were only involved in producing of information. It is expected by the industry because it follows what already has been happening on projects. I see a little bit lack of consequence throughout the new proposal. On one side, it's a very strong emphasis on separating information production from information management, but only information production is formally defined in the new standard proposal, but information management is not. And there are also a few confusing clauses, which I will show you in a second, which does not help to really understand the intention.
Marcin, sorry,
Yep.
but would you please a little bit speed up because
Yes.
we have
Okay.
not
What's
too
the
much
time?
time.
What's the time?
We already you passed almost 37 or 35 minutes, so
Okay.
you still
Okay.
have I know a few slides, but because we
Okay.
start to receive
Okay.
some
Okay.
questions.
Okay. Okay. So again, to summarize this and to make this change clear and this separation clear, I think it would make sense to very clearly define that information production and information management does not overlap. They are separate activities, and call them together as information delivery. At the moment, there is a statement which you can see here, and the first underlined statement that information management includes information production. I think that's confusing. Number 8, structure part 3 becomes implementation guidance. As I said, this is an intention which is not clear what it will happen. It's making implementation guidance as formal as a standard. I'm not exactly sure how it would work. So I think it may be a good thing, maybe not that good. It's basically unclear. Here I have a summary of all this. If we look generally on this, I think that the change of the ISO is necessary and generally in good direction, with some small amendments that would help to make it clear and even better. But basically, as everything in our field, it's a journey. Thank you very much. Let me show the result of the survey. Okay, so we have a vast majority of responses selecting that BIM deliverables are models, drawing, and ISO 19650 documents. It's a good thing to note. Maybe we can comment on this further during our discussion and questions, but just let's look at this. Maybe we can check what are the responses. Oh, that's a big response. Okay, we will not analyze this at the moment, but it's worth looking at later. That's a response for the something else. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, it is a very, very positive result. You happy with the result, Marcin? Like,
it doesn't matter whether I'm happy or not.
yeah.
I would not. My opinion would be a little bit. Well, I don't like the term BIM deliverables at all. I prefer project deliverables. It's because
Okay.
all this confusion. For example, why drawings are BIM deliverables? When we didn't have BIM, we still had drawings and they were not BIM deliverables. Now they became BIM deliverables for some reason.
Yes, I agree with you. Anyway, until Dr. Ibrahim gets ready, I think he's almost ready. I shared my screen with our extended online survey. Here you will have a chance to answer more questions and also to express your feeling about the 80 changes that Marcin introduced for us. I will put the link for the survey on the chat. Dr. Ibrahim, let me know if you are ready, so you can share from your side.
Yes. Okay, Dr. Ali,
Ready?
thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
so stage is
our
yours.
chairman. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So, okay, is screen okay?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Okay. First, I welcome everyone joining us the webinar today, and thank you for Marcin giving his practical view, his personal view on the proposed changes. And as we saw, that there is a mixed feeling about those changes, some positive, some not so positive. What I'll do is just maybe briefly, maybe take 5-10 minutes. Really, I look at the changes beyond the language, looking from maybe a higher level or a different angle. So about me, probably many of you know about me, but as a joke, after the proposed draft, I start considering changing my title from building information modeling expert to building information management expert. I presume this will be a challenging for many of roles we have in the industry. Many of us says BIM manager, BIM modeler, and so on. So at some point, we will see a
Dr.
trained.
Ibrahim, it's still a proposed. We have
I
the
know.
chance to
I said that. I said the draft. I said the
probably.
draft. Yeah, I said draft. But I think the proposed mean most likely will go through. Most of the changes will go through.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm talking about down in the future, not now. It's just a kind of a fun joke. So looking at the key shifts, just to summarize the main shifts that maybe you need to take away with this webinars. This is a snippet from the standard, and as Marcin said, showed that information management, it says includes information production. I think if you read the standard itself or the proposed draft, when I say the standard, the proposed draft, it really implies governs information management, governs information production. So I added a comment to the draft when I participated in feedback. I suggested in change the includes to governs. But in any case, we see three terms here. Information management include production, and production include modeling. And this is kind of change of tone from current version. So based on kind of feeling from this snippet, or what you can, it implies that in the current adopted version to 2018, the standard is evolved around BIM-based workflows, but the proposed one now trying to go expanding beyond BIM-only thinking and focusing more on information management. And it's a way implying that it doesn't matter how you produce the information, BIM or otherwise, it doesn't matter as long as you produce the information that satisfy the purpose. So BIM, it kind of framed in the new proposed draft as a tool, a method to produce information. In my own mind, for all the time, all these years, BIM is a bigger umbrella to encapsulate really the ISO or other similar BIM-related materials. So this is the first big shift. BIM is kind of changed in the scope. The other shift is the information and role. Current version of the draft, current version of the standard focus on delivering information, but the new one focusing on information purpose. So in a way that it's not only about delivering information, it's key for the success of a project is defining what information serves or the purposes. It's not only about delivering models. Even high quality models doesn't matter as long as it doesn't serve a purpose. So it has to serve a purpose. The other thing is we can see shift in the role. The appointing party become more prominent role. So if you read the current version and the proposed version, you'll see there is a spike in the activities that the appointing party now has to deal with. Appointing party meaning the client or the asset owners. So it's now reaching about 60%, down up from maybe 48%. So that's more work on the appointing party. The process shift, as Marcin said, is now we have one combined process, unified single process for the whole life cycle, merging delivery and operation. And maybe that's a good thing. So make things look simpler, but there is a higher expectation from all the parties participating in the process, especially, as I said, the client. Parts 3, as Marcin said, will be replaced by, I think, what they're suggesting called implementation guidelines, because the standard itself is a very generic document. So it needs some supporting material to give it some concrete meaning. So those are key shifts. You can consider them a high-level takeaway, but now reality check. So the standard sounds on the surface is a great thing, but on the ground, we all know there is reality in the construction industry. The construction industry has some change fatigue. We see a lot of changes, especially nowadays with the AI, a lot of companies trying to see how they can fit this into their workflows. So now we have also the ISO draft. So there's some fatigue in the industry. And the other thing I would emphasize on is the skill gap. If you read the standard, you assume that we have teams in the industry, very connected, very organized, very, let's say, have management skills. But the reality is on the ground, the process is quite fragmented, skills is not there. And there is this gap that will be a very challenging thing when the ISO is adopted, whether the current one or the new one or the proposed one. The proposed one has more focus on the management. So there is a requirement for high-skilled managers in the future. I'm not trying to be negative in doing the reality check, but the reality is there on the ground, and at some point this has to be dealt with. So what now? As Dr. Ali said, the proposed changes is still draft, but the direction and the shift is very clear. So moving more or heavily to the information management. Some changes are welcome, some are not. There is debate on whether the update is needed or not. That's a different, everyone has his own opinion. But ultimately, I think some of those changes will be adopted. We need to understand that the ISO defined principle it's not a rule book. Maybe for up to every country to define in concrete rules what this principle mean in implementation guidelines. Last point is the ISO or the update is logical in my personal view, but in reality, it won't matter unless the industry itself, the mindset, the behavior change, adopting, let's say, better technology, moving to building capabilities or capacity skills. That's, I think, is a higher urgency than just adopting any standard on paper without really on the ground implementing those standards. For those who may like to play with the compare between the current version and the draft, there is a tool I posted previously on LinkedIn about it, that when I was looking at the current version, the proposed version, the current version and the proposed version, it was quite dry material to read. And we are, as a human, we like visual, graphic, connecting concepts. So I mapped the current version to creating certain maps or graphs, and the proposed one, kind of similar graphs. For each graph, you have some details here, and you can see how the concept and relationship between those concepts are connected. I think time is limited, but so for example, here, just going through this one, information production milestone, you'll see how the information starting from defining the purpose, go through the, let's say, the process of the information production, the milestones, and all the way until it sits in the common data environment. There is one also for the information management system, where you see the top, the information management process, how it govern, and this is the words are from the standard itself, not my words. It govern the information production and so on. And also how now we have, as Marcin said, we have the new state in the proposed draft, but this is not exist or doesn't exist in the current version. So if you want, you can have you can scan the code here and have fun with this tool. It gives you kind of feeling what the changes graphically, visually between the current version and the proposed version.
Maybe can you put the link, Dr. Ibrahim, later on the chat?
Yes, I will put on that chat. And that's kind of, as I said, it's just highlighting key takeaway, and ultimately it's up to you. You make your personal calls on these changes. So as Marcin said, I encourage everyone to go and read the draft, and if you have time, also put 2 comments for the committee to take into account when they finalize the drafts. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. I will insist to say read and comment, not only read, understand, and comment, because this is the chance that we can express our personal idea. I will also encourage people who didn't yet complete the survey to complete it, because there are some basic questions to measure the importance of the standard in general, or also to measure if you already as individual ever had the chance to read this standard, to have it as a PDF or printed, or never, because the ISO standards are expensive usually for individual. So we are asking very critical and basic questions in the survey. So even if you know nothing about this ISO, go to the survey and answer the question, I never heard about it. So the survey is not only for people. We have some questions. Let me check only from Georgie. Maybe one you always a deep question on the QAQC. Maybe one of you can answer it. But let me to have this conversation like active, like in interactive question. I will allow mics for people can raise your hand. You can ask a question. But the question to start with what you ended by, Dr. Ibrahim. You said you see these changes is logical after 8 years, but at the same time changing something in the middle when people are still adopting, and then changing principle and basic concept, or giving name to the same things which people call them BIM execution plan. You change nothing, you just decide to change name. How you see this will lead to be illogical? Is it not adding confusion, or adding gasoline to the fire, or making things more complicated for I don't want to have this peaceful webinar today. I want people to say their opinion, to fight for what they think is correct. So I don't know, Marcin. Of course, you can comment on this. And for Marcin, the question also, when you talk about BIM, and you started to say it is BIM is a branding, it is a commercial, it is the vendor software trying to enforce BIM. But BIM in academic is also long time ago. People have, as you said, job title with BIM, and maybe this move from BIM to IM is something coming from UK. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. Maybe this is alignment with the NEMA initiative to move from BIM to IM because BIM has failed in UK. This is my personal opinion, not necessary to be true. So now just to say information management will solve the problem of BIM as acronym. Will people then ask what is IM? What kind of information management expert you are? Are you expert now in data science, in database? Are you a programmer? Are you a developer? For people who have been as a BIM manager, BIM lead, etc., etc. So please, like collaborate on these ideas, which I believe a lot of people have in mind. How you see this balance between the positive and negative aspect. So I forgot to enable mic. So anybody would like to go to the mic to add to what I said, please raise your hand. And Dr. Ibrahim and Marcin, you could give some feedback to the questions which already on the chat,
just,
or to deliberate on this.
I just say one sentence in support of what you just said. I also feel that information management, and I mentioned it on one of the slides, is as a foreign term to construction industry, and people will not know what it means. That's why I prefer the term information delivery, because delivery is a term from our area. We deliver projects every day. And then further, if we adopt a simple equation that information delivery equals information production plus information management, because we have something to be produced first in order to manage it, then I think it will be better. Will it be ideal? Probably not. But I think that information deliveries would generally be more understandable term within our profession than information management.
Okay, thank you, Marcin. So we have Mahmoud Taha Jawad. Would you like to go on the mic?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Thanks, Marcin, for a great webinar. Thanks, Dr. Ibrahim and Dr. Ali for your remarks. Actually, as you said, like I just have one question with all of this happening around in the industry as well. Like the standard has been changing quite a lot of terminologies, and a lot of people who are working in the information management industry, such as we have the conventional roles like a BIM coordinator, the BIM manager. So my question was that do you also see that there will be new roles coming in to manage these information management functions, or do you also expect that because of this change in the standard, there will be the changes in the roles, the conventional roles that we have as well? And the second part of my question is that with because the standard is also introducing new terminologies, and as I understood from the Marcin's presentation, is that the BIM execution plan is no longer a BEP document; it's an information production plan. Do we see that the conventional BIM roles, such as the BIM managers or the BIM coordinators, would have to upskill themselves? And if so, what are those skills that they would require in the future to cope up with this changing terminologies or changing workflows in the standard that we are seeing? So those are the two links that I just wanted to have your opinion, and that's an open question to anyone.
Maybe you will be information management coordinator, information management modeler, information management manager. So we'll have to receive a lot of
Information management modeler sounds like a mouthful.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in the past, I hope that this change will not happen, this BIM to IM, because it will make confusion. But if it happened that to be accepted or like adopted, so I think BIM was protecting people. When you say BIM manager, BIM coordinator, it's
Yep.
easier. He's to work domain in BIM in building, so you have a specific building before the information and before the management or modeling, and then the rule. But now if you remove BIM, so it will be like information management draft expert. I don't know,
We
Dr.
shouldn't.
Ibrahim or
We
Marcin.
Yes, I think BIM has like in the industry for 25 years now. And a lot of people maybe see no progress in the construction industry, and somehow people start blaming BIM, not themselves, the industry, not upscaling itself. So I think in a few years' time, we'll discover now, even we change the terminology, the problem will remain the same. The industry itself is not investing in the scaling, upscaling, and so on. But there is attempt now trying to move away, I guess, from BIM to information management in the hope that maybe that will make people are more optimistic about these changes. But I think it will also create challenges and problems more than it's solved, at least in the near
Do
future.
you believe, Dr. Ibrahim, as Georgie said in the chat, it is a kind of attempt to restart the BIM? So it is now anything expect what it was supposed to be, or I think they are trying to fix these things in a in a wrong way. Like you failed to achieve, you failed to let people understand what BIM is. You failed to raising awareness that BIM is not 3D, BIM is not modeling, because you failed in 30 years or 25 years to deliver. I mean, failed, not the software vendor, they did the job correctly, but I mean the community, the standard, the buildingSMART, whoever is working in the domain, they failed to give people what is the real meaning of building information management. So the easy solution to remove this negative image of BIM acronym now, to rename it, to more make it short, like information management.
I think the ideal situation would keep it, but work
Yeah.
under this umbrella. That's I think the ideal, because now if we start changing, you'll create two camps, two different people, two groups, maybe start going at each other. So hopefully we will not see this situation, and everyone eventually go on the same direction. But at least in the short term, I think it will cause some confusion.
Marcin, I have a question also. What about if we assume theoretically that the ISO 19650 has nothing to do with BIM anymore? So to disconnect this,
I like it.
to disconnect this connection between BIM and this ISO, because from my point of view, it is not related to BIM. It is about defining responsibilities, rule, delivery, the status of submission and delivery, the common data environment. So it will never talk about BIM as we understand BIM compared to other standards which talk about, for example, level of information need, etc. So instead of like arguing now too long if we have to move the BIM to IM, if we decided to this ISO is not for BIM, this ISO is only for information management. It is a general framework. It is can be applied maybe with BIM, even without BIM, not necessary to be connected to BIM. Will this make like this?
Dr. Ali, this is 100% exactly the draft saying now, saying you can use BIM, CAD, whatever to produce information.
Yeah, but the problem, Dr. Ibrahim, when you read now any code, even Dubai building code or any like people presentation, they connect always BIM, that BIM should be done according to this standard. You know, this is the dilemma here.
Yeah,
that they always add this copy paste, like you have to do to deliver according to this ISO. So I mean, if we start to clarify what is the rule of this code, of this ISO, sorry, standard, maybe it will make this confusion less.
Dr. Ali, I think that what you said can work perfectly fine if we define the BIM thing properly. And the way I would define BIM, which would work well with what you said, is that BIM is the activity of producing, not managing, of producing digital design information using digital tools. If we define BIM like that, but we have to agree that that's how we define BIM, then the ISO 19650 could be only about information production. Sorry, management.
Yeah, you're right, but the problem, I think, Marcin, that in academic, on all the literature online and books and so on, BIM is kind of wider than just producing information.
I know.
And that's what I talk about, the
confusion
happening, because some people just see it about modeling, some people see it a bigger umbrella, like myself.
Yeah, that's why we need to have the definition of BIM first. These conclusions. So to follow, to support what you said, that ISO is 19650 is only, it's not about BIM, but about information management. This could work if we define BIM like that, in this, for some people, narrower scope, but I think it's more true to reality that BIM is the activity of producing design information using digital tools. Producing, not managing. I think that's how my feeling is, that this is what BIM really means for most of the people. Because CDE, which is a platform for managing information, managing deliverables, most people would not say that's part of BIM. That's part of the managing information once it has been produced. That's why my proposed definitions, which I showed in the presentation, of those two activities, information production and information management, are very clear and very distinct. Production is the activity of creating or updating information, like producing a car. You create this car and then you maintain it, you manage it, you drive it, but you don't change it. Now, production of information is anything related to creating or amending information. While managing is doing something with information that has been produced already, or preparing a framework for information to be produced. So it's basically doesn't deal with the content. The management deals with the framework, with workflows. So I think we can have a very well-defined distinction between the two. And if that happens, then ISO 19650 could be about information management only.
I'm sharing the result of the survey. We had, I think, almost 14, or how many, maybe more, 22 person or more who participated. Something interesting for me, that the fact that almost half of the people never had the chance to access that or to read the real standard. They just maybe know about it, about the social media. Here I have a question, Marcin. Do you think like having the ISO or having such very important standard to be not for free is can be a barrier or like obstacle for?
I think it can. I think it is a barrier. Yes, definitely. However, I have to note that there has been very comprehensive and well-written set of guidelines issued by UK BIM Forum or something. They changed the name to Information Management Forum. It's a I don't know, more than 10 guidelines for each part of for the ISO 19650, which are free, and they contain a wealth of information. That's partly why I'm a little bit confused about the role of the upcoming part 3 as a guidance, because we've already had a lot of guidances in circulation. So, it's not clear how this particular guideline, which will be elevated to the level of a standard, how this will work.
Okay. Well, for the surveys, there are some results which not easy to be interpreted on live, because, for example, when we look at the biggest challenges for applying BIM, we see almost like equal distributed reason, like if it is not required contractually, or lack of internal skills, or too complex. Maybe we need to further analyze the result. But for me, I will keep this survey open even after the webinar. Like, you will have chance maybe to invite other persons, or to complete the survey if you didn't do it today. It's interesting to see that a lot of people have BIM. We have some person digital delivery. I assume it is you, Marcin. You filled the survey, or maybe some person he decided also to use digital delivery as a title. It's interesting. Okay. Do we have any further last questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, I wanted to mention one thing, and that's in the result of this first question that I posted. I will share them again if I can. We can see that the vast majority of respondents assume that drawings are part of BIM deliverables, which is on one hand a bit surprising, but on the other hand positive, because that tells us that BIM deliverables are actually project deliverables. It's actually the same, right? We have models, drawings, the main project deliverables, and also ISO 19650 documents. Maybe some more documents, not only ISO 19650, but it almost tells us that the term BIM deliverables is equal to design deliverables. And the conclusion for me is that let's just use design deliverables instead of using BIM deliverables, which confuses everyone, but we well know what are design deliverables. It's what's written in the contract, in the list of deliverables or checklist or whatever we call it. So this confirms to me that the term BIM deliverables, as many terms, similar terms with BIM within it, is not necessary. In that case, I would say it's not necessary, and it's better to use. It's more clear to use project design deliverables.
But probably there is a challenge then to cover the operational and the construction. So design maybe is limited to certain phase of the life.
Okay. Project deliverables. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. Thank you, Marcin. The
Thanks,
last wish from my side, please follow the Building Smart UAE chapter page on the LinkedIn, so you will be notified for our future webinar. And of course, we are always looking for speakers, a new topic. So if you wish to host you as our next webinar speaker, contact us, and we will be happy to arrange all the work need to be delivered the webinar. Okay, so should we close now, or I think we have still some questions, but please, if you have some question not answered,
you can always reach out to the speakers if you have any questions.
Yes, or on the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you all, and have a nice day.
Maybe we could one day have a panel discussion where we could accept questions live without explaining the whole background of ISO proposal, which has been done already. Like
From my side, maybe we will arrange another webinar or some small session maybe before the end of the official period to submit comment, just maybe to have more views or maybe to see. We will see. Okay, thank you all. I will stop recording now and
Thank you.
I wish you all have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.